Welcome back. I'm Sebastian Gorka, former strategist to the president, host of America First, the newest national radio show in America on more than 120 stations coast to coast on the Salem Radio Network, broadcasting live from ReliefFactor.com studios just outside the putrid swamp. Now I am very glad to have with me Horace Cooper, who is the co-chair of Project 21 and also senior fellow with the National Center for Public Policy. And I can attest, since we were on the same panel early morning on Saturday on live television, a man whose scope knows no bounds. Your left and right vectors are massive. We went from talking about Governor Northam to North Korea, and it was a very, very educated discussion. Welcome to the show.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for coming in studio. It's always best when our guests are in studio. You made a very intriguing point in the green room prior to us going on to the Armstrong Williams show on Saturday about the real issue when it comes to Governor Northam. What's the real backstory here that we're not focusing on?
Remember what Colin Powell said, former Secretary of State? If you're going to go into Iraq, if you break it, you own it.
You own it, right.
Well, Governor Northam has broken political and public discourse on the topic of race, and he owns it. It was his idea to decide that he didn't have much of a vision. He hadn't shown much leadership
when he campaigned.
When he was campaigning
right.
in 2017. And so let's just create a racial wedge against Ed Gillespie. Now, he's the one who's native to Virginia.
Gillespie, you mean?
No. Mr. Northam.
Northam, okay.
Ed Gillespie was born and raised in New Jersey. No hint of bigotry, no hint of racism in his entire life. Now, full disclosure, I know Ed Gillespie. He actually is an amazing and wonderful person. And I talked to him when he was campaigning about his efforts to do outreach to Black Americans as well as the rest of the state. But it was Ralph Northam who decided, I don't actually have a competitive vision, so I'm just going to castigate my opponent as a bigot.
The classic default liberal angle, when you don't have something good to say, your opponent's a racist.
And by doing so, he raised the bar. He created an environment where apparently you didn't have to do anything directly. Ed Gillespie's entire career, his entire lifestyle, nothing about it actually constituted any act of overt racism. So, according to Northam, we're able to just impute certain ideas to you based on your philosophy.
With that campaign ad, which had a pickup truck with a Confederate flag attempting to mow down minority children with, and this is the imputation of guilt, nothing more than what? An Ed Gillespie bumper sticker. That was the campaign ad.
That was the campaign ad, and then public pronouncements that we weren't going to tolerate the kind of bigotry and racism that Ed Gillespie was bringing to the table. If I had the baggage, racial baggage in my background, I would never have brought forward such a thing.
Now, the latest reports, we have a minute left of this segment, the latest reports say that the discussion leaked from the governor's cabinet meeting is he's refusing to resign because he doesn't want to resign labeled a racist forever. Your reaction to that, Horace Cooper?
This is the most curious thing I've ever seen. You accuse a guy of robbing the bank, and his answer is, which bank are we talking about? Not that bank. No, good. I didn't rob that bank.
Right, yeah. I've done blackface before, but not that. That photograph isn't me. Wow, I'm so glad that we invited you. That's superb. Yes. All right, we shall continue. We have to talk more about his connection to maybe the lieutenant governor. There's a very interesting question there with regards to the lieutenant governor. What's the question you'd ask right now about this news story?
How did the story on Justin Fairfax appear so quickly and out of nowhere? Who benefits from that, and who would have a motive to get it out there?
Wow. Cui bono. Who benefits? I think, dear listeners, we have the best listeners out there. I think you know what Horace Cooper is intimating there. Who has the most to profit from the heat being turned up on the Lieutenant Governor right now. Yes, indeed, it is the governor himself. We will unpack more with Horace Cooper, Senior Fellow of the National Center for Public Policy and also co-chair of Project 21. But now I have a personal request to you, my dear listener. Can I challenge you to think of at least one thing that you no longer do that you wish you could? Do you miss playing golf, long walks with your spouse, or sleeping through the night? Are you ready to start living without pain? My colleagues and friends here at Salem, Hugh Hewitt, Dennis Prager, Mike Gallagher, have been talking about their own successful experience with Relief Factor. Relief Factor is changing the lives of tens of thousands of Salem radio listeners right now by reducing and even eliminating their daily aches and pains. ReliefFactor.com is full of great success stories, and now I too am on board. Yes, just before the show launched in January, I started to take Relief Factor regularly, and my lower back pain issues have gone. Now, for just $19.95, Relief Factor is offering a 3-week quick starter pack that could help you live your life with little to no pain. Go to ReliefFactor.com, see the testimonials from Americans all over the nation who are looking at getting their lives back with Relief Factor. Most impressive of all, over 70% of those who try the starter pack continue as regular customers. Feel the relief. Get back your independence and freedom from the aches and pains of everyday life. Go to ReliefFactor.com. This is Sebastian Gorka on America First with Horace Cooper next from the ReliefFactor.com studios. Of course, my guest, Horace Cooper of the National Center for Public Policy, is comfortable in front of a microphone. He used to guest host for G. Gordon Liddy. I mean, come on. Guy could do it in his sleep. Welcome back. I'm Sebastian Gorka. This is America First. We're talking about the current governor of Virginia for the time being, Ralph Northam. But we have to connect the dots here. And there are 3 names that we have to discuss in this next segment. Governor Northam, Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax, and Margaret Sanger. Please, enlighten us.
One of the things that we know about the revelation about the blackface and the KKK uniform is that one of his students or colleagues at the school saw his comments that were gruesome with regard to abortion. I think most of your audience remembers that it was his considered view that when a baby is born, even if you intended to have an abortion, if the baby is ultimately born, that you would temporarily give the child some assistance, and then the mother and the doctors would have a little convo about what to do afterwards. And he seemed to think that was normal. Not a crime, not a felony, just normal.
Right, so if you decide to kill the child that has been born, that's okay. And apparently now we have the reports it's a former college mate of his who is so horrified at that radio interview the governor gave that he's the person who leaked the photograph to the website on Friday.
Well, why does this matter? Margaret Sanger is the founder of Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood pumped $3 million into the Northam campaign for governor. $3 million. Big Abortion came in and said, we're going to buy this election. And they didn't care what Ed Gillespie's views were on immigration, what they were on race relations. They wanted the butcher of their choice to be sitting in the House, in the Capitol. And they got their guy. But Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, was a eugenicist.
But for those who are not familiar with that term, let's talk about what her racial motive is.
That's just a fancy word. It's a $25 word. I'm from Texas. Or she was a racist. She actually believed you could group human beings into certain categories, those that were valuable and that should continue, and those that we should work to reduce their population. And she She worked with the Klan. She was a consultant with the Ku Klux Klan to help them promote their goals.
Not only that, listeners, if you watch Dinesh D'Souza's new movie, Death of a Nation, there is an incredible reconstruction of a documented meeting of the Nazi Party in Germany during the Third Reich, when Hitler instructs this conclave to write a this is not, just don't take my word for it. Go out there, watch the movie, check it online, where Hitler instructs this conclave to write a fan mail letter to Margaret Sanger because of her racial policies against, for example, African Americans.
So this idea that you butcher certain children, and by the way, black kids and brown are disproportionately the victims of this kind of slaughter. There's
in New York, the latest statistic, more black American children are aborted than born in New York right now.
Great movie, Gosnell. If you get a chance, it's coming out on DVD and Blu-ray. If you get a chance to watch it, I watched it in the movie theater, and you get to see what it's like when someone systematically locates and targets the most vulnerable, the most marginalized in the community. It is that backdrop that brings us Planned Parenthood working with this governor and supporting the most brutal and gruesome activity, saying that a born child doesn't deserve the kind of basic things that we might do if we saw animals injured on the side of the road. This is the guy who refused to shake the hand of his opponent, E.W. Jackson, a black man who was running when they were both running for lieutenant governor. And this is the same man who said, well, wait a second, when we're distributing some of our literature in Southwest Virginia, let's take my black running mate's face and name off of that literature. It is that backdrop that brings us to a point where he castigates his Republican opponent, who has no record, no circumstance, no hint of bigotry or discrimination, and calls him the bigot. Projection much?
For full disclosure, I campaigned for E.W. Jackson, the man who the governor, the African-American who he refused to shake hands with. So this is the Butcher of Richmond. We can start calling him the Butcher of Richmond. How long do you, Horace Cooper, give the Butcher of Richmond?
See, I actually think he isn't going to get the message that it's time to go.
No.
He's more like the governor of South Carolina, who's the governor Mark Sanford. He's more like the governor of Mark Sanford, thinking I can weather this. Well, the difference
who had his Argentinian girlfriend scandal.
He got caught, and they threatened to impeach him. They threatened to not work with him, not confirm any of his cabinet members. But he wrote it out because his violation wasn't a breach to the people, and he had never talked about fidelity as an issue. But this guy has broken every single
so that's
commitment.
the point. In the last 30 seconds, with a left that is predicated on identity politics and dividing us by race, in the last 30 seconds, how long does the Butcher of Richmond have? This is not this is not analogous to Sanford, so what do you think the future holds?
I give him a month. And it's going to be painful because every single Democrat from Kamala Harris to Booker are going to have to weigh in on this.
You heard it here. Lay your bets. He's got 4 weeks. I think it might be shorter. But we shall see. You're listening to Sebastian Gorka with Horace Cooper of the National Center for Public Policy and Project 21. Taking more of your calls next here at America First on 833-33-GORKA. That's 833-334-6752. And streaming at sebgorka.com. What do you think? How long has the Butcher of Richmond got?